you ever feel defined by your shortcomings? Like a particular weakness casts a long shadow over everything you attempt, holding you back from where you want to be. It's a heavy feeling, a frustrating reality many of us grapple with. We see our flaws, our gaps, our vulnerabilities, and often feel powerless against them, as if they are fixed, unchangeable parts of who we are. This struggle isn't new. Throughout history, leaders, thinkers, and strategists have confronted limitations, both their own and those of their circumstances. What if the way we perceive weakness is fundamentally flawed? What if, hidden within that vulnerability, lies an unexpected source of power, waiting to be unlocked? Imagine shifting your perspective entirely. Over 2 millennia ago, the legendary Chinese general and strategist Sun Tzu offered profound insights into conflict, strategy, and human nature in his seminal work, The Art of War. While written for the battlefield, his wisdom transcends warfare, offering powerful lessons for navigating the challenges of everyday life, including how we deal with our own perceived weaknesses. Sun Tzu wasn't focused merely on brute force. He championed intelligence, adaptability, and understanding the terrain, both physical and psychological. His core teaching suggests that strength and weakness are not absolute states but are relative and contextual. What appears weak in one situation might be irrelevant or even advantageous in another. This is the key. So the first step in the art of turning weakness into strength is radical self-awareness, but viewed through a strategic lens. It's not about judging yourself harshly, but about objectively mapping your own terrain. What exactly is this perceived weakness? Be specific. Is it impatience, shyness, a lack of resources? Naming it clearly is like identifying a feature on a map. Consider impatience, often seen as a flaw leading to rushed decisions or frustration. But viewed strategically, it can also signify a drive for efficiency, a dislike of stagnation, or quick thinking under pressure. The weakness isn't the energy itself, but perhaps its uncontrolled application. The raw material might be valuable. Now think about shyness or introversion. In a world often rewarding extroversion, it can feel like a disadvantage. But Sun Tzu would ask, in what context? Shyness often correlates with deep observation, careful listening, and thoughtful consideration before speaking or acting. Are these not strengths in negotiation, planning, or relationship building? Sun Tzu emphasized knowing the weather and the ground, the external conditions. Similarly, we must ask, in which situations does this perceived weakness actually hinder me? And crucially, in which situations is it irrelevant or perhaps even helpful? Your shyness might be tough at loud parties but an asset in focused work. The feeling of weakness often arises when we try to force ourselves into situations where our natural disposition is misaligned. Instead of trying to fundamentally change your nature overnight, Sun Tzu might advise choosing your battles more wisely. Position yourself where your inherent traits become advantageous, or at least neutral. Consider a lack of resources, money, connections, formal training. This feels like an undeniable weakness, but Sun Tzu knew that armies traveling light could move faster. Scarcity can breed incredible ingenuity, forcing creative solutions and prioritizing what truly matters. Resourcefulness becomes your hidden strength. When you lack conventional resources, you learn to rely on wit, observation, and collaboration. You find unconventional paths. Think of David versus Goliath. The perceived weakness, smaller size, less armor, dictated a strategy that negated the opponent's strength, speed, and accuracy versus brute force. This leads to a crucial Sun Tzu principle, turning the expected into the unexpected. If others perceive you as weak in a certain area, they lower their guard or make assumptions. This creates an opening. Your perceived limitation can become a form of camouflage, allowing you space to prepare, observe, and act decisively when the moment is right. Imagine being underestimated in a negotiation. Your quietness might be mistaken for lack of confidence. While the other party dominates the conversation, you have the invaluable opportunity to listen intently, gather information, and formulate a more considered response. Your silence becomes strategic depth. Sun Tzu advises, appear weak when you are strong and strong when you are weak. This isn't about deception in a malicious sense, but about managing perceptions. Don't broadcast your vulnerabilities unnecessarily, but also don't overestimate the limitations they impose. Understand how others see you and use that understanding strategically. The art lies in the adaptation. If you are physically small, you don't engage in contests of pure strength. You focus on agility and speed. If you are prone to anxiety, you don't seek high-pressure, unpredictable environments. You excel in meticulous planning and risk assessment, turning worry into preparedness. Think of water, a recurring symbol in Eastern philosophy. It appears soft and yielding, yet it can carve canyons through solid rock. It adapts its shape to any container. Water doesn't fight obstacles head-on. It flows around them, seeks the path of least resistance, and eventually wears them down. Your perceived weakness can teach you to be like water. Embracing this adaptability means letting go of rigid self-concepts. You are not just shy, or just impatient, or just under-resourced. These are facets, aspects of your current reality. Your strength lies in your ability to respond intelligently to the situation at hand, leveraging all aspects of yourself, including those you once labeled weak. Consider a past failure stemming from a weakness. Instead of letting it define you, analyze it like a general studying a lost battle. What was the terrain? What were the conditions? How did the weakness specifically contribute? What alternative strategy, acknowledging that weakness, might have worked? This turns regret into invaluable intelligence. Sun Tzu stressed the importance of knowing yourself and knowing the enemy, or, in life, the challenge situation. If you only know your weakness but not the context where it matters, you'll feel universally inadequate. If you only know the context but not your own tendencies, you'll blunder into unfavorable situations. Both insights are crucial. Let's re-examine impatience. Knowing this tendency, self-knowledge, and facing a complex, long-term project context, the strategy isn't to magically become patient. It's to break the project into smaller, achievable milestones where quick bursts of focused energy are effective. You channel the impatience productively. Think about a fear of public speaking. The weakness is the anxiety. The context is a presentation. Instead of aiming for flamboyant oratory, leverage the strengths often paired with this anxiety: thorough preparation, deep knowledge of the subject, and a focus on clear, concise delivery rather than performance. Your meticulousness becomes your strength. Sometimes, the perceived weakness is simply a lack of skill in a specific area. Sun Tzu wouldn't advise ignoring this. He valued training and preparation. But the strategy isn't just brute force practice. It's identifying the most critical subskill needed for your goals and focusing your energy there, rather than trying to master everything at once. This strategic approach prevents overwhelm. If you feel weak in communication, that's too broad. Is it writing emails, small talk, presenting data? By pinpointing the specific context and skill gap, you can devise targeted practice or find strategies that minimize reliance on that specific weak point, perhaps using visuals instead of complex speech. Sun Tzu valued intelligence gathering, understanding the situation deeply. When facing a challenge where you feel weak, gather information. What are the actual requirements? Are your assumptions about your inadequacy accurate? Often, we overestimate the standard required or underestimate our existing capabilities. Knowledge dispels fear. The weakness might even be a unique perspective. Someone who struggles with conventional learning might develop extraordinary problem-solving skills. Someone less physically robust might cultivate exceptional empathy or intellectual depth. Don't assume your difference is solely a deficit. It's often the source of your unique strength. Sun Tzu emphasized flexibility and avoiding fixed plans. According as circumstances are favorable, one should modify one's plans. If a strategy relies on an area where you are weak, and the situation demands it, change the strategy. Don't cling to an approach that exposes your vulnerability. Find a different angle. This requires humility, the willingness to acknowledge the limitation without being defined by it. It requires creativity, the ability to see alternative solutions, and it requires courage, the willingness to deviate from the conventional path or expected approach. These qualities themselves are profound strengths. Consider criticism or negative feedback related to a weakness. Instead of defensiveness, view it as valuable intelligence from the battlefield. What does it reveal about how others perceive you? What specific behavior triggered it? Is there a valid point that can inform your strategy for adaptation or context selection? The power lies not in eliminating weakness, an impossible task, but in understanding its relationship to the environment and your goals. It's about transforming your relationship with weakness from one of shame or frustration to one of strategic awareness. You become the strategist of your own life. Sun Tzu's wisdom reminds us that victory often goes to the one who knows when to fight and when not to fight. Sometimes, the strongest move regarding a weakness is to refuse to engage on unfavorable terms. Don't put yourself in situations designed to exploit your vulnerability if you can avoid or reshape them. This isn't about avoidance fueled by fear, but strategic disengagement. It's conserving your energy for battles you can win, leveraging your actual strengths. If networking events drain you due to shyness, focus on building deep one-on-one connections where your listening skills shine. Choose your terrain. Another layer is understanding that weaknesses can be temporary states. Lack of experience is a weakness that naturally diminishes with time and effort. Fatigue is a weakness remedied by rest. Recognizing the transient nature of some vulnerabilities prevents them from becoming permanent psychological blocks. Sun Tzu valued preparation above all. The victorious strategist only seeks battle after the victory has been won. Applied to personal weakness, this means doing the background work. If you know a situation will challenge you, prepare meticulously. Rehearse, gather resources, anticipate obstacles. Preparation minimizes the impact of weakness. Think of a musician practicing scales before a performance. The scales themselves aren't the music, but mastering them builds the dexterity needed to perform complex pieces flawlessly. Similarly, targeted practice on aspects related to your weakness, even if tedious, builds the foundation for navigating challenges more smoothly. Moreover, weakness can foster interdependence. Recognizing you can't do everything alone prompts collaboration. Asking for help, delegating tasks, or forming alliances based on complementary skills turns an individual weakness into a collective strength. Sun Tzu knew the importance of coordinated forces. If you struggle with organization, partnering with someone methodical can create a powerful team. Your potential creativity combined with their structure achieves more than either alone. Admitting the weakness allows you to seek the necessary support strategically, rather than failing in isolation. Sun Tzu also speaks of shape, adapting your formation to the enemy and terrain. Psychologically, this means not letting your weakness become your defining shape in your own mind. Don't over-identify with it. See it as one part of a much larger, more complex and adaptable self. When you face adversity related to a weakness, it tests your resilience. Overcoming these challenges, even partially, builds inner strength, confidence, and wisdom. The struggle itself becomes a forge, tempering your character in ways that smooth sailing never could. The scar tissue can be stronger than the original skin. This perspective transforms setbacks. They are no longer just failures but data points, opportunities for strategic refinement. Each time you navigate a situation where your weakness is challenged, you learn more about yourself, the context, and the effectiveness of your adaptive strategies. This is growth. Consider the concept of ground in Sun Tzu. There is accessible ground, entangling ground, dangerous ground. Likewise, situations in life engage your weaknesses differently. Learn to recognize the psychological ground you are on. Is this a situation that plays to your weakness, dangerous ground? Can you reshape it or withdraw? If you know you get flustered in chaotic environments, entangling ground for your focus, prepare by creating structure beforehand. Arrive early, choose a quiet spot, have a clear agenda. You are modifying the ground, making it more accessible for your disposition, rather than being overwhelmed by it. Sun Tzu advises winning without fighting where possible. This might mean reframing the problem entirely. If you feel weak in direct confrontation, can you achieve your objective through diplomacy, indirect influence, or by changing the goal itself so confrontation isn't necessary? Strategy trumps brute force. For example, if you feel weak competing for a promotion against a more charismatic colleague, don't try to outshine them in charisma. Focus on demonstrating your reliability, competence, and results, alternative strengths that might be more valued in the long run. Reframe the competition. The core message isn't about eliminating weakness, but about achieving your objectives despite, or sometimes because of them. It's about intelligent adaptation and positioning. True strength lies not in flawlessness, but in knowing how to deploy your unique combination of traits effectively within your circumstances. What weakness feels most limiting to you right now? Take a moment to name it specifically. Now apply Sun Tzu's lens. In what specific context does it actually hinder you? Are there situations where it's irrelevant? Could it, viewed differently, contain the seed of an unexpected strength like caution, observation, or creativity? Perhaps your weakness is being too sensitive. In a harsh environment, this hurts. But in relationships, creativity, or understanding others, sensitivity is a profound gift. The art is to protect your sensitivity where it's vulnerable and deploy it where it's a strength. Choose your environments and interactions strategically. Maybe you feel weak because you lack formal credentials. Sun Tzu might point out that this frees you from conventional thinking. You can approach problems with fresh eyes, unburdened by dogma. Your weakness is the source of your potential innovation. Focus on demonstrating practical results, which speak louder than certificates. The feeling of weakness often stems from comparison. We compare our backstage struggles with others' highlight reels. Sun Tzu would advise focusing on your own war, your own objectives, your own terrain. Comparing yourself to others is strategically irrelevant. What matters is your effectiveness in your own circumstances. Sun Tzu said, "Know the enemy, know yourself. Your victory will never be endangered." In the context of personal weakness, the enemy is not the weakness itself, but the limiting belief that it defines you or renders you powerless. Knowing yourself means understanding the weakness objectively, without shame. Victory is understanding how to navigate life effectively with your weaknesses. It's about fluidity, like the water finding its path. It's about intelligence, choosing where and how to engage. It's about perspective, seeing potential advantage where others see only deficit. This is the subtle art Sun Tzu teaches. This shift in perspective requires practice. Start small. Identify one situation this week where your perceived weakness might arise. Beforehand, consciously think, how can I approach this strategically? Can I reframe the situation? Leverage a hidden strength, prepare differently, choose not to engage. Don't expect perfection. Sun Tzu knew battles involve setbacks. The goal isn't to never feel weak, but to respond to that feeling with strategic awareness rather than resignation. Each attempt is practice, gathering more intelligence about your own terrain and the effectiveness of different approaches. Remember the relativity of weakness. What feels weak to you might be perceived as strength by someone else. Your meticulous planning, born from anxiety, might seem like reassuring competence. Your quietness from shyness might appear as thoughtful wisdom. Perception is malleable. Sun Tzu's strategies often involved patience and timing. Sometimes the best way to deal with a weakness in a given situation is to wait for conditions to change. Don't force things when the weather is against you. Conserve energy, prepare, and wait for a more favorable moment to act. This approach cultivates inner calm. When you stop fighting desperately against your perceived flaws and instead start strategizing around them, you regain a sense of agency. The focus shifts from "what's wrong with me" to "what's the most intelligent way forward given the current reality." This is empowering. Consider physical limitations or chronic illness. While undeniably challenging, applying this lens means focusing energy not just on fighting the condition, but on adapting life around it. Finding new ways to contribute, managing energy strategically, cultivating mental resilience, these become the new battlefield. The strength developed through adapting to such challenges is often profound. Empathy, patience, appreciation for small joys, creative problem-solving. These are not compensations for weakness, but genuine strengths forged in adversity, often deeper than those cultivated in ease. Sun Tzu emphasized the psychological dimension of warfare, morale, perception, deception. In our inner lives, this means managing our own self-perception. Don't let the weakness demoralize your entire army, your sense of self. Isolate it conceptually. Recognize its limits. Celebrate your strengths. If you tend towards disorganization, acknowledge it without letting it define your entire identity. Focus on systems and habits, your defenses, that mitigate its impact in critical areas. Celebrate your creativity or spontaneity, which might be the flip side of that trait. Maintain your inner morale. Ultimately, the art of turning weakness into strength is about wisdom. The wisdom to know yourself, the wisdom to understand your context, and the wisdom to adapt skillfully. It's not about eliminating flaws, but about integrating them into a larger, effective strategy for living a meaningful life. It requires a subtle shift from judgment to curiosity. Instead of "I hate that I'm impatient," ask, "Isn't it interesting how my impatience manifests? Where does it cause problems? Where might that energy be useful?" This detached observation is the beginning of strategic thinking. Weakness often feels isolating, but recognizing that everyone possesses vulnerabilities and that strategic adaptation is a universal human challenge can foster connection and self-compassion. You are not alone in this. You are participating in the fundamental human art of navigating limitations. Sun Tzu's approach is inherently optimistic, not based on wishful thinking, but on the power of human intelligence and adaptability. It suggests that no situation, no personal trait is inherently hopeless. There is always a potential strategy, a different angle, a way to leverage what you do have. The strength you gain isn't necessarily about becoming the opposite of your weakness. The shy person doesn't have to become the life of the party. The strength lies in effectively navigating the world as a thoughtful, observant person, using those traits advantageously. It's strength found in authenticity. This art requires ongoing practice. It's not a one-time fix, but a lifelong approach to self-awareness and strategic living. Every challenge becomes an opportunity to refine your understanding and hone your adaptive skills. You become a lifelong student of your own nature and circumstances. Think about the energy freed up when you stop constantly battling your perceived weaknesses and instead focus on strategic placement and adaptation. That energy can be redirected towards your goals, your relationships, your well-being. It's a more efficient and less exhausting way to live. Sun Tzu valued knowing when the battle was already won or lost before it began, based on preparation and positioning. By understanding your weaknesses and strategically choosing your contexts and approaches, you significantly increase your chances of success and well-being, tipping the scales in your favor internally. The greatest weakness might be the refusal to see weakness strategically. Clinging to denial, "I have no weaknesses," or despair, "My weaknesses define me," prevents any possibility of artful adaptation. Honesty combined with strategic thinking is the key that unlocks the potential Sun Tzu described. So the invitation is this: look again at what you consider your weaknesses. Suspend judgment. Apply the lens of strategic awareness. Ask, how can I understand this trait more deeply? How does it interact with my environment? Where might its hidden potential lie? How can I adapt intelligently? This doesn't mean challenges disappear, but your relationship to them transforms. They become less like insurmountable walls and more like terrain features to be navigated with skill and intelligence. You move from feeling like a victim of your flaws to becoming the strategist of your life. This internal shift is the true victory. It's a quiet strength, a resilient core that comes from understanding and acceptance, paired with creative adaptation. It's the peace that arises when you know you have the tools to face life's inevitable difficulties, not by being flawless, but by being wise. Sun Tzu wrote about the formless being unpredictable, adaptable, impossible for the opponent to grasp. By strategically navigating your weaknesses, you become more formless to life's challenges. You are not easily defined or defeated by one aspect of your nature. You flow, adapt, and endure. What if your greatest perceived weakness is actually pointing you towards your most unique contribution? What if the adaptation it demands is precisely the skill the world needs from you? Consider that possibility. The obstacle is the path. Embracing this art allows you to move through the world with less resistance, more grace. You stop wasting energy fighting yourself and start using all parts of yourself intelligently. It's a path towards greater effectiveness, but also towards greater self-acceptance and peace. The wisdom of Sun Tzu, applied inwardly, teaches us that true strength isn't the absence of weakness, but the artful integration and strategic navigation of our complete selves within the complex terrain of life. It is knowing yourself, knowing your world, and adapting with intelligence. You hold the capacity for this art within you. It begins with a shift in perception, a willingness to see your vulnerabilities not as final judgments, but as starting points for strategy, creativity, and unexpected growth. The power lies in how you choose to see and how you choose to act. So don't despair over your perceived flaws. Instead, become the strategist. Study the terrain of your life, understand your unique disposition, and learn to maneuver with wisdom. Turn what feels like a disadvantage into a source of surprising strength and resilience. This is the essence of turning weakness into strength, not through force, but through the profound power of strategic awareness and adaptation. It's an art available to anyone willing to look deeper and think differently. Reflect on this. What is one small, strategic step you can take today, inspired by this perspective, to change your relationship with a perceived weakness? The journey begins not with grand transformation, but with a single, wise adjustment. May you find the wisdom to see your whole self clearly, the creativity to adapt skillfully, and the courage to navigate your unique path with resilience and grace. The strength you seek may be closer and more subtle than you think.